26th, and this is our 66th meeting, so we've had quite a few. I'm going to turn my camera off, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. So are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, great. So what I'm showing here is these are the meeting minutes from last week that I sent out. And so, you know, we talked about the cluster tag or the tagging again. So we have a few follow-up items there. And then we also held a behavioral model call last week where we talked about private link mapping. And I'm curious, you guys, just a housekeeping note, do you guys like the format of these notes, or do you prefer the format where I don't put as much information up front in the email and I just have links to everything that you could click and go read? So I guess my question is, do you like it right in front of your face in the email, or do you prefer to just have something shorter with links you can go click if you're interested? And I'm going to ask Mircha, what do you like?
The lazy person that I am, I like everything in front of me. So
See, I thought so too. What about you, Bud?
I agree.
Okay, and then Mohammed or Hanif.
Yes, I think I agree. It should be.
You like it this way? I'm lazy too, so I just kind of throw it out there in front. I'm not the kind of person that will go, oh, I'm going to go click that, because then I usually don't have time. So that's me. Guess I'm just pulling a couple people. Go ahead, Chris.
If it works, don't break it.
Well, I don't know that it works though, because I see formats of different meeting notes going out, and it's like, well, maybe that works better. You know, I don't know. So just if you guys want something different or want me to do it differently, just tell me. What do you think? I'm curious, Mukesh. Do you like it this way, where I just lay it all out and shoot it to your email, or do you prefer links to go click?
It looks good, Christian. I think
it's fine.
because,
Okay.
It's important because like searching through the videos, I mean, there's no way we can do that. So
okay, all right. So I try to just put the PR, what the title is, summarize what I think we said, and then the next action item or what we were going to do, and then move on. That's what I try to do. So, and maybe little interesting screenshots if we have them. Okay, I'm going to keep doing it this way then. So, okay, thanks for that. So I'm going to go off camera
This is very concise and this is very detailed at the same time. It has all the information we need. So
okay, thanks, Rashmi. You know,
for sure.
Okay, cool. Because I have seen other formats where you just go click different links and the email is shorter. So I'm open to either, but if you guys like it, we'll do it this way. So, okay, so we talked about ACL tag, we talked about all this stuff last week. And so we did have a couple of follow-ups that needed to happen. We needed to make sure, and Prince isn't here today because he had a conflict, but I'm going to follow up with Prince and make sure that he can add notes you know, in the HLD about whether we're going to separate into two different rules. We're going to document differences as part of the work agent. And Marian, we were going to ask him maybe if we can check whether we can express all in ACL mode. I don't know if he's on. Oh, he is on the call. Did you have a chance to look at this, Marian? Hey, Marian.
No, not yet.
Okay, I'll shoot it out separate. I'll just shoot you a separate email. Not a big deal. And then Prince also needs to add this requirement for the northbound tag and the translation. So I know we have follow-ups there. So anyway, last question. Are you guys receiving these notes? It sounds like you are. Like they're hitting your inbox? Okay, because they're not hitting mine. Somehow I got left off, so I've started it started not working about a month ago. So I'm just starting to copy myself again. Okay, so anyway, moving on. I was wondering if, so Chris, did you want to give a quick update on the P4 workshop?
I can.
Or synopsis of your experience?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I went to the annual P4 workshop, which was held in person on Intel campus in Santa Clara. And it was attended by, I'd say, on the order of 100 attendees. It's about half the audience of the last in-person one 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not sure why. Probably there's a bit of a downturn in terms of travel budgets this time, as we all know. But it was a good event. There was a lot of engagement, a lot of good talks on a variety of topics. And compared to some of the earlier P4 workshops, this one had a lot more, let's say, real world content. In the very early days, there was a lot of academic talks about P4 and all kinds of novel algorithms you could do for congestion management, things like that. Now it's getting a lot more pragmatic. There's a lot more things about integrating with real systems, real applications. Dash was brought up in a number of different contexts. So there's quite a bit of widespread awareness about Dash in different communities. The P4 community is generally aware of it. The Open Programmable Infrastructure, or OPI community, is quite aware of Dash. So there's more and more, general awareness. There were DPU vendors there, switch vendors, all kinds of, professor types and PhD student types presenting interesting works. So it was good. There was a fireside chat by Nick McEwen, who was in charge of the data center and switching and NIC division of Intel. I might have gotten the specifics of that wrong, but he gave a fireside chat and talked a lot about his vision. He did discuss quite candidly about the Tofino roadmap being halted and why, mainly economic reasons. There wasn't really any discussion about what a follow-up, what the follow-up solution is for people programming in P4. But I would say that a lot of the discussions focused on SmartNIC or DPU IPU applications. There's a lot of presentations on some of the nitty-gritty of plumbing, different software stacks on P4 enabled devices that were more SmartNIC-like. So I would say you can definitely see a trend shifting, and Intel did quite a few presentations in that regard.
Great.
So yeah,
Thanks.
I would say it was a good conference.
Thanks. That's awesome. So just so everyone knows, the SmartNIC Summit is coming. This is June 13th through 15th in San Jose. And it looks like I've received approval to go. So I will be there. I believe Gerald will be there. And I believe Gerald will be delivering a keynote there. And so if any of you come, it'd be fun to see you. I think we can invite a couple more people. Yep. So, we missed it last year, but I think we have, what is it, like a keynote, a table, an exhibit table, a beer and pizza event, something like that, something to that effect. So, of course, now I'll probably be tasked with putting it together. Maybe I can get Lewa to come. I don't know. So we'll see.
Right.
So that's that update there. Yep. And then anything else social I don't have. I guess PR 346. Does anyone know if there's been an update to this one about the change to the SAI submodule?
I thought last time Vladimir Mitnick said this was completed. We
Oh,
have
he
a
did.
separate issue. Yeah, we have a separate issue in SAI that has broken some PDF, but we're working on that separately. This one was closed. I thought 346.
Let's see. No, this one's still open.
Open. Okay.
Okay, wait a minute. I see a CI failure of sync to main recently is trying to make PTF work, so CI may fail. Okay. So we can ping. Is he on the call? It's probably late where he is. So okay, we can ping him. I'll just
Yeah, I will update you offline today.
Oh, sure. Or I can send a ping through the PR. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And then it sounds like I didn't have a ton of other PRs. They just look like the normal PR list here, and which is fine. I can give time back this week. But what I was curious about, so Clark is here from Alibaba, and he had a question about how to prep for, he wants to submit a PR for the behavioral model call. And so maybe people more familiar with behavioral model could give him a quick rundown on how to, Clark, all we really do is just, create the PR and submit it. So were there more questions around that?
Yes, actually, I want to know what kind of information I should prepare, or just submit the code as an PR and then explain that.
Okay, all right.
Or I have to prepare some.
Yeah, so we usually like to have some sort of description of why we're doing the PR. I guess Reshma, I could let you pick up on that, but it's super helpful to have a description of why we're doing the PR and what purpose it would serve. And then Marian, is there anything extra you like to see in behavioral model PRs?
No.
I would make a recommendation that you first make sure that in your local dev branch, in your fork, that it's passing all the build and CI test in your GitHub actions. And that's kind of a sort of a first timer mistake that keeps happening, that they submit a PR that's failing, where it could be tested in your own fork first. And what you want to do is in your local fork, enable CI actions in your GitHub pipeline. Then you'll see if they build and pass properly. If they don't, you probably should resolve it locally before you submit a PR.
Yeah, sure.
And feel free to reach out to me, if you have any questions about that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would also like to just add to what Chris said. It's not just only enough to have the existing test cases passing, but also if, whatever the changes that you're adding, make sure that, please add the new test cases to make sure that it is accompanying all the unit test cases to validate, verify, and, test the additions that you are suggesting, right? So I think this becomes that whatever the PR that you are bringing in with all the changes, that you accompany with the unit test cases.
Yeah, sure. I will have that code and the test cases together and make sure I test before I commit that code and raise the PR.
Well, you can commit the code to your local fork. That's fine. You want to do that. But submitting a PR is kind of after everything's working.
Yeah, sure. And I previously had some code PR in the SONiC community, and I see that in the SONiC community, the code PR may have a link to the code to the HLD. So do we have the same convention here?
We probably should. We've been pretty lenient. If you have an HLD and you want to put a link to that in your PR, that would be really recommended. Yeah, we've been lenient.
Okay.
And Clark, if you could please add some description on what the PR is related to, that will help a lot.
Yes. Actually, it's related to the NAT HLD we previously trying to add. So yeah. So
if you could please add that link or something.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
I had one comment, not specific to this PR, but in general, would it be a good idea to have the generated SAI APIs also committed to the repo? That way, if there's any change in the APIs, we could easily see that. Right now, just looking at the PR, it's very hard to know what APIs changed.
I'm not quite familiar with this SAI API parts, because I read that documentation, and I think that is auto-generated code, right? From the P4.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not asking specifically about this PR itself, but in general, I was just trying to see if it would be a good idea to have the generated SAI APIs also visible in the repo.
Would it be the SAI APIs under this folder or the one in the Open Compute repo is what you're asking to cross-reference?
So it's not cross the new dash SAI APIs that are getting generated based on the P4 code that we write here, the BMV2 P4 code that we write here. Based on that, we generate dash SAI APIs, and then that's what gets committed to the OCP SAI repo.
We're not
Gotcha.
hearing you.
Sorry?
I think someone was saying something that didn't come through.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that came from Hanif's
Yeah,
speaker
I think
or
I
if
was
that was
saying,
someone else.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, I was saying it's a great idea, and then I'm not sure in our GitHub Actions, are we running besides the test cases to ensure that okay, our pipeline is working, and then we have not broken anything. Are we also running the test cases to generate the API and ensuring that if there are any changes, are we catching them or flagging them or whatever be the case, right? To ensure that okay, the sanctity is preserved, right?
I can answer that. Every CI build or every make actually auto regenerates the SAI API and the complete SAI lib SAI for the behavioral model, and that's what the tests are. When the tests are run, that's what's used. The real-time snapshot based on the P4 code. That's actually what takes the most time in the make file, is not regenerating the API. That's pretty fast, but rebuilding the SAIthrift server client libraries based on the SAI headers du jour. So it is rebuilt. But the second part of the question, do we look for changes in the SAI header or breaking changes? We don't, and that's a real good. It's a real good point. And I don't know what the right way to go forward is on that. It'd be probably quite a bit of effort for someone to implement. First of all, decide what to do. Do we just report the changes as a report, or do we somehow look for breaking changes? I think that might be done in the OCP SAI repo. I'm not quite sure.
But isn't it true?
I think Marianne's trying to answer.
Yeah, when you generate SAI, we also generate metadata, which compiles SAI headers into SAI metadata and verifies that any changes done to the headers are not breaking.
Well, that's true in the SAI repo when it checks for changes against the SAI repos committed information, right? You kind of regenerate something from previous commits. There's comparisons of previous commits, right? But what about that?
I'm talking about metadata. It goes over all of the headers and checks if the headers are valid and according to SAI rules and all that.
Okay, so it checks for, let's say, basic SAI conformance, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's checking for deltas that might be breaking changes, right? I think that was the question. Can you give an
example of that?
Well, I would go back to Mukesh and say what was the motivation of your question, which was a really good question.
But before I just to make one point, Chris, isn't it true that if we are doing this thing as part of GitHub Actions and we generate the APIs and we build the SAI and we test it out, if there was if the SAI APIs had broken or something else had happened, our test would fail, wouldn't it?
Yes. It's regenerated every time, so it's always a live rebuild and test of the current code.
So the fact that our tests are passing, it means that perhaps the SAI APIs are maintained or are preserved, at least from the test point of view. Unless you go and modify the test also as part of it.
Yeah, so the hypothetical scenario that Marian asked for, let's say we were further along in Dash, right? And people were using SAI headers and they've built their platform around some committed SAI headers, and someone changed the P4 code and changed the definition of something and changed the test case in the Dash repo to pass the test. And that's kind of what we do. We sort of keep everything working. But some other person who's spent time on their own fork, even private fork, creating their vendor specific platform is using a previous header definition, that our tests wouldn't check that we broke something for somebody else. Right. And that's where we need maybe a committed version of the headers in the OCP SAI repo. You know, that's the kind of situation that might arise someday.
Oh, but that's versioning. That's not really breaking the headers that you have. Is you're talking about? Okay, I think a good example of that would be renaming an attribute, right?
Yeah. We don't even really do versioning in the
break
Dash
an
repo.
implementation, but that's a different level. I was thinking purely about SAI APIs. You can rename something, but that won't be backward compatible if someone has implemented that. But we do not include vendor implementations of Dash SAI into our into Dash project anyway. So I don't know how to solve for that and to check for backward compatibility.
Yeah, I guess we're going to be getting to a point where we're going to need to commit our Dash APIs, you know, update the SAI repo version of the Dash APIs, right? And that will sort of be a stake in the ground. But the good news from all this is at least we're always self-checking this repo against all the test cases every time with fresh builds.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There could be the situation that we would make a non-compatible version, but I don't see any way except for manually checking for that to ensure that we won't break implementations. Like another case would be making an attribute mandatory instead of optional.
Yeah, so my question was more towards like the manual verification part. So currently, if you make a change in the BMV2, it's very hard to know what change it caused in the SAI API unless you actually build the code and look at the SAI APIs for yourself. Right? So every reviewer would have to do that. I was wondering if we can put the SAI APIs generated ones also in the repo and it shows up in the diff. Then it would make it much easier for people to review it and stuff like that. I'm not sure how to do that, how to get the generated APIs into the repo and make sure that that also gets updated every time the PR.
I would ask
PR makes changes.
Yeah, I understand the problem you're trying to solve, Mukesh, but it really only takes like under a minute to regenerate the SAI APIs. It's very, very fast. You know, if you just type make all, it'll build everything, and that takes 5 minutes or
Sorry,
so.
And then, but
missed
you'll
some
have to
of the
do a diff
conversation.
after that and stuff like that.
Mukesh, you are asking to add this into, when you say repo, are you meaning the SAI repo?
No. No, I think we already have, we committing like every stable point or whatever to the SAI repo, right? But whatever changes we're making in the Dash repo here, it might be changing the SAI APIs, right? Attributes or adding new APIs even, things like that, which might, I mean, I was just thinking it might make it easier if we can actually view the diff right in the PR itself.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to just commit those, right? It would just be part of the make file. We just commit the output directory or the subdirectory, the header files generated, and then you could do a diff, right? That would make the PR.
Right.
That's not a bad idea. And even if we just use it purely for review and not use those
Yeah,
artifacts.
it's just for review. Yeah, it's just for review. But the
Separately,
tricky part is if somebody submits the PR, there's no, I don't know how to make it mandatory that they also have to run the, I mean, they update the generated code as well. They might commit it without updating the generated code, so which then it might still not show the diff. So, but yeah, yeah, it's not automatic is what I mean to say. But yeah, at that point you could say, okay, it looks like there is a change in this IP and you have not updated the generated code and ask them to push again over. But yeah, I thought it might be easier to review if we have the SAI APIs in the diff.
Right.
yeah, separately, the dash SAI APIs in the SAI repo, they need to be current as and how we are adding features into the BMV2. Are we regenerating those Delta SAI APIs and updating the SAI repo? We need the reason is that we need the SAI APIs, which we take from OCP SAI for the PTF tests. And if it's not there, then we don't have the SAI API. It will be hard for us to build the PTF test and complete our libSci testing for any vendor, right? For example, a feature like metering, there is information in the HLD, dash HLD, but there is no SAI API that we can use. And the HA SAI APIs that were discussed are still not in OCP SAI.
For metering, there is no behavioral model to generate APIs.
Right. So yeah, so the SAI is actually behind the HLD right now and dependent on the BMV2.
Because HLD is not the base for SAI APIs. Behavioral model is. Right now, we're merging all of those changes manually. Like I'm raising pull requests for every change in auto-generated SAI API to get it into master OCP SAI. So that's how it's done today. But for examples given, like metering, we don't have it in behavioral model to generate them in the first place.
Right. So yeah, so it will be difficult to.
How often are we updating the SAI headers in the OCP?
Yeah, that's another question too.
Yeah, how often are we doing that right now?
Whenever there is a change.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whenever there is a change, I generate a pull request.
Oh, okay. So then we should make this one as an automated process we're talking about, right? As Mukesh was saying. So if we have, in our repo, in our in dash master repo, if whenever there is a change, and if that change, mandates that, okay, there is a SAI API change or SAI header file change, then that automatically generates and commits it automatically into our own repo, and then subsequently also generates a PR into the SAI master as well, so as to make sure that we are consistent, right?
But you cannot really commit it to our own repo and then separately commit it to or generate a pull request to OCP SAI, because then you will have the same commit with different commit ID in two forks, which will then require you to resolve the conflict, because Git will see that there's a conflict, which is why I think that committing auto-generated changes to our fork is not a good idea. What we can do for visibility is to generate a diff and show it in automatically in the pull request, but committing them will lead to different commit IDs. And I don't know how we can, I don't think there is a way to solve that every time, because we will need to sync it with OCP SAI, and it will happen for every such dash commit.
So what difference does it make if you have two commit IDs? Because they are two different repos, two different communities. It's just that one file that we are basically keeping the same file in both places, right? It's just the same thing, right? No?
So why do you need that? Because right now we have, to my understanding, we either have it already or we are supposed to have a submodule of SAI, which is OCP SAI. If we want to commit something separately, we would need to keep also a submodule of the fork. Why would we want to do that?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So there is a submodule that essentially points to the auto-generated headers. Okay.
No, we don't have
So
a
Marian, you're periodically updating the OCP SAI soon as a new feature is added in the BMV2?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah, so you're
I'm
as
not
soon as
updating. I'm not updating the submodule pointer.
you're updating the SAI, yeah, two things will be needed, right? One is OCP SAI PR and merging it there. And the submodule pointer also needs to be changed.
I'm only doing the first thing.
Okay, then Chris or someone, I don't know if someone is changing the submodule pointer.
No, because
Someone has to do it basically going forward.
that's, I think, what PR 346 was doing, and it still has there's a problem.
Right,
No.
in 346, there has been like a breakage in the PTF in the OCP side. And the dash changes that we had done for dynamically obtaining the number of ports and all these other changes for test cases, etc. That has been sort of affected, and it's going back to static version of how ports were obtained for switch side of things. So that's a different PR 1755. We're trying to get that fixed. That's the reason why 346 is blocked.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's no point in updating our SAI submodule pointer until it works.
That's for sure, but overall practice for someone to
Yeah, keep it up to date.
All right. Well, this has been fascinating.
Scintillating.
Scintillating, yeah. So this is all I had for the day, unless anyone else has something they want to talk about or bring up as a PR Q&A agenda item. Try and follow the 7-second rule. But I can give time back if you'd like. So thank you everyone for coming. Thanks for the feedback on the meeting notes. I'll just keep doing it this way until I hear anything differently. You can also just reply all and say, you're a terrible PM, get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, have a good rest of the day.
Thanks
and
a lot.
I will see
Thank
you
you.
next time. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Christina.
Bye.
Thank you, Christina.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.